welcome to Lead Line, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here and to be here with Dr. Martin Kwende again. My name is Dr. Elnora Webb, and to family and friends who've known me for years, where you're at on the planet, yes, I'm Tina also. Dr. Kwende and I are very honored to speak with you as part of the Wealth Equation series about the importance of owning your perspective, making your own decisions. And so the first thing we wanted you to think about are these big questions that are in simple form. First one is your thinking helping you get the desired results? Second, are the perspectives you have your own? And three, are you making your own decisions? So the first thing that we want to do is tell you why we have, as part of this wealth equation series, this discussion or devoting time to owning your own perspective and in order to make your own decisions. Dr. Kwende, you want to take it away, start us off?
Yes, Dr. Webb, good afternoon. How are you?
I am well. And you?
Great, you're looking great as always.
Thank you. Likewise.
It's always a pleasure being on this forum, and I appreciate you for inviting me. Obviously, the idea of making your own owning your own perspective for me is a big deal because we live in a world right now where information is very abundant. Every child, every adult has a cell phone. You can Google anything you want. But does that mean that you have the right information to make the right decisions for yourself? I don't know. And I think, we look in society, you look at COVID, look at financial challenges that we have. Even though there's plenty of information, I don't believe that a lot of people have the right information or the right process to make decisions that are in their best benefit. Right. So this is something that I think as a society we need to talk about a little bit more. And one of the quick examples that I can bring up is kind of as a child growing up, every family picks the doctor, the pharmacist, the attorney, right? And when I grew up, they told me, oh, you're super smart, you're supposed to be, a medical doctor, right? And I was like, well, yes, I know I'm smart, but my older brothers were around telling me because I didn't have, my uh, father, I didn't really know him. My mother passed away when I was 16 years old. But it was like, hey, you have to go do medicine. And I'm like, I believe medicine is a calling. And I've been listening and they didn't call me. I couldn't do it. No, that's it. That's what I said. Right.
I
Uh,
love it.
but the truth is, most young people, kids, they grow up and the parents tell them what they think they should be. So the parents are trying to live their life through their kids. All of us try to do that, right? But at some point, we all grow up and we have a chance to decide what we really want. So the question is, how do you decide how to drift away from what your parents wanted you to be? Some of us get stuck trying to live our parents' dreams instead of our own, so we're not happy, right? So being able to make a decision, your own decision, is key to your happiness, to your life. So this is something that I think is very important to talk about, and that's why I'm excited that we're able to talk about that today.
Yes, and it's really interesting if one's not fortunate like you, even though you didn't have your mother nor your father throughout your life, you had them at seminal periods in your life. And a number of folks who are viewing this show, thank God, thank the Great Spirit, thank just the universe for you having what you have. But some of us didn't have that. I grew up in foster homes, as you know, and there was a spell I didn't have a home, and yet I was affected, like you were, by the adults around me, whether it was directly the individuals who were in the classrooms that I was in or in the communities that I resided in, or whether they were through the television, through movies, through news, through radio. All this input was just bombarding us as children and are bombarding us now, whether we're children, young adults, or older adults. And the question is, what are we allowing to bombard us? Yes, it's reality that things are going to happen no matter what we do, but we get to turn things down or turn them up, turn them down or turn them up. And when we understand our capacity to lead in that way, lead our own lives as though we're the CEOs of our own lives, then all of a sudden the vista becomes ours. And that's what this is about, folks. Yes, if we're fortunate, we've got loving parents who want the best for us. And so they say, here's an opportunity. You're brilliant. Do what they told Dr. Kwende to do. Become a doctor. Dr. Kwende was astute enough to know, well, I don't feel called by it. and yet you did take advantage of the guidance and the love and support of your parents, and you went on. You went on to college, you earned your baccalaureate degree, you earned your master's degree, your MBA, you earned your PhD, and you went into what? Medical device technology. So in a sense, they still influenced you. You created things that went into people's bodies, right?
Yeah.
I was not supposed to live beyond the age of 20. I was not supposed to amount to anything because from people's perspective, I was born to a kid. I grew up in the streets. And so when I was in foster homes, I wasn't supposed to make it. And something in me twitched. It's like all these statements made about me in front of me as a kid made no sense. And then I realized adults just didn't have a clue because they never asked me. And then luckily, I broke through some nonsense, whatever it was, in order to protect myself. But in the process of it, I was learning about my capacity. And that's what we want you to know, right, Dr. Quinn? We want people to know you have capacity that probably exceeds your current understanding or even your expectations, right?
Absolutely. And the truth is that the best person to make decision to benefit you is you. Why? Because there's no person between you and you. However, most of us don't have all the information
Yeah.
to make the best decisions that we need to make.
Mhm.
Right? So the question really is, how do you get the right information to make the best decision? I used to work in the medical space. So if I would talk about medical device, I studied that. I worked on that for 20 years. So they asked my opinion about it. Right? But if I wanted to talk about money, for example, which is one of the things that we do, I had to go find a financial professional. I had a financial advisor. Even though I had an MBA, PhD, I still had to find a financial advisor because I was not the expert in the financial space.
In that area, you got it.
Right.
You got it. And you were astute. You did what hopefully growing numbers of folks across the planet are doing, which is paying attention to details. If you want to achieve X, identify someone who's already achieved X and done it well in a way that's consistent with your values in terms of integrity, in terms of collaboration, in terms of whatever it happens to be, diversity, appreciation, and then create the circumstances so that that person says, I will mentor you. I will ensure that you have a coach. I will, the kinds of things that you experience, right?
Absolutely. And even when we talk about, finding somebody in a particular space with expertise, you still have to be careful, right? Even though I got a financial advisor, I asked a lot of questions because that's what I had to do to make sure that I understood. And in the process of asking, that's how I understood that they were not telling me everything that I needed to know because some basic questions they couldn't answer. So just going to an expert is not necessarily the solution. You have to figure out who the right expert is, right? So when we say ask an expert, yes, they're going to give you some basics, but if you want to get a little sophisticated, you have to ask even more questions and be careful how you listen, right? Because in my journey of asking questions, so I had to go to the expert first, but I kept asking questions. I figured that they were not telling me the right stuff. So when I met my mentor right now, Eric Olson, guess what? As soon as I asked the exact same question I'd been asking, he gave me the answer that no one gave me before. And that actually made me pay attention and it changed my life. But I was already looking and seeking for the right, information so I can make the right decision. So the process is key, right? But it's not just finding an expert, you have to find the right expert.
The right expert, and you have to be open. So one thing that you make clear every time we discuss this broad topic of wealth equation series, and we're going to talk about what those equations are, or aspects of the equation. You always emphasize the importance of listening. You don't necessarily use the word listening, but folks, we want you to remember listening is an absolute remarkable skill. When we're able to slow down and hear not just the words being conveyed, but the intent behind the words, then you're really actively listening. And so, if Dr. Kwende didn't listen to his advisors, financial advisors, the previous ones, in a way that allowed him to determine what they were saying and the intent behind what they were saying, he might not have been open to Mr. Eric Olson, who is our mentor, who gave him clarity about what leads to financial freedom, clarity about what instruments will facilitate not the current generation's wealth, but intergenerational wealth. And there's some basic fundamentals that literally, when I heard about them last year, and I'll be 63 in October, I could not believe all my life I'd never heard of these fundamentals. And as I have talked, and Dr. Kwende and I have talked, and his team, he's got a beautiful, large team. I have a growing team. As we listen to people answer some basic open-ended questions, we not only learn that they don't know what they don't know, when we share with them just the tip of the iceberg, they're blown away. Like my nephew-in-law this past Sunday, who Dr. Kwende had an opportunity to speak with. He was like, "What?" Now, this is a brilliant young man who earned his bachelor's degree in physics. So he's not some fly-by-night young man. I'm so proud of Banji. That young man listened to Dr. Kwende and was just like, wow. And he worked in a bank. He's worked in various roles in and out of country. So why is listening powerful for you, Dr. Kwende?
Well, I mean, I think that's a fundamental skill, right? If you're gonna figure out what's going on, you have to be able to listen and kind of hear beyond what you've been told, right? And if you're gonna ask questions, then you better be good at listening, because all the information is communicated, but you have to figure out the right one for you, right? So the skill to listen, I think, is critically important, right? Because that's how you have to filter from the information that you receive what is important, and be able to find the things that are missing so you can ask the right questions. If you can't listen correctly, you can't understand what's being communicated, and you cannot be able to ask the right follow-up questions to get better insight.
And fundamental to listening, when I use the word being open, as Dr. Kwende demonstrates always over and over and over again, and other folks we know, brilliant listeners, is being open means you are automatically wired to grow. And there's something that we were going to show you later, but I'm going to put it up here just to help magnify the significance of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. On the one hand, we fundamentally understand that just because we experience X does not mean that we have to illuminate X for the rest of our life, that we have to be X, that we have to in any way deal with X. We can literally shift to A or B to be more practical. Dr. Kwende indicated his mother said, "You're smart, you're going to be a doctor." He could have done that, and it would have been brilliant. He would have helped a lot of people, as he ultimately did. But he chose a different path that was complementary, and now he's chosen an even more remarkable path that is even more profound. In fact, when we think about our willingness to grow, we understand that challenges are an opportunity to get us to our end goal more efficiently or effectively. We understand that the more effort we put in a smarter, more strategic way, leveraging the right people, we are actually more successful. But the inverse is true. If we are not willing to listen, not willing to grow, we remain where we're at, which may not be a bad place, but we're likely not to be able to progress as we see life change all around us. What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Kwende.
As you're speaking, Dr. Webb, I'm looking at this right here. Can you see? This is very interesting. Look at the choice of words of the fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, right? So let me do the second one. Someone says ceiling, the other one says potential,
Mm.
right? Another one says failure, the one says setback. If you have a setback, you can always come back,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
The other one says try, and one says effort, right? And one called it criticism, the other one says feedback. It's kind of amazing just by using the right words how much you can change how you see what you see,
Yes.
right? And when we talk about listening, it's almost like listening verbally, but you can also listen visually by how you interpret the words that you see.
And you listen through your heart too. Because at the essence of who we are our emotions, our feelings that drive most of our behavior. And it's until and unless we use our mental faculties, we are letting those emotions drive the majority of what we do all day long. The moment we realize that and say, okay, I've got a subconscious mind that is in my emotional mind, and it literally ensures that my feelings dictate my action, I want to shift that because the results I'm getting are not what I want. And so, how do I do that? I use my mental tools, that six set of mental tools, my perception, right? That's what we're talking about perspective. You can perceive things one way from a fixed mindset, you can perceive things qualitatively different from a growth mindset. Then your will, wow, willpower gets us through a lot, right, Dr. Wende?
Yeah.
And then memory. You remember stuff. So you put it in the right context. You're learning things. And then what are the other mental tools?
I think one of the things that somebody just shared, I was watching, I don't remember exactly, I know it's online, but it's the fact that, right now, the way that we've been trained to study, it's almost useless because before we're trained to study information so we could kind of recall information. But all the information is easily available right now on the cell phone, right? So it's not so much about remembering the information, it's about being able to interpret and use it.
Yes.
So that's why being able to listen is key. It's not just knowing the information. I can ask my kid, how do you make whatever? He just can go online and Google it, right? Because it's all there. But that doesn't mean that he knows how to make it, right? So the way that we look at the world right now should be significantly different because of the tools that we have available, right? We have access to the
Mhm.
internet, to our cell phone. There's
Mhm.
a lot of information. That means we have to be even more discerning about how we interpret the things that we see and that we know.
Mm. Mm. So you basically referenced some key aspects of what we should be doing. Determine what you need to make a decision. Be in a place where you understand how to gather the right facts, not just a bunch of facts, but the right facts. Understand how to analyze that information and the circumstances perhaps that surround that information, and then weigh the pros and cons of that situation or that data and the relevant circumstances, and then make a decision. However you do it, it has to be based upon using that sound intellectual set of faculties that we have. Now, there are other questions before we talk about some key points that I want to highlight that I just jotted here. Uh, there's a question that we had, right, Dr. Kwende? Consider the areas of the five F's. Should you consider taking advice from the amateurs or the experts in that area? You've touched on that, but tell people the five F's.
Yeah. So those are I think, the five key areas of life that we all want. I think most people want. The first one is faith, right? The second one is family, then finance, which is, your money, then fitness, which is your health, and then fun, travel, whatever. Those are called the five key areas of your life: faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. All of us desire to have a great life by having balance in those areas, right? So the question is, when it comes to like your faith, as an example, do you just go to church and just listen to the priest, or do you even read the Bible yourself if you're a Christian? because everybody's different, right? If you're Muslim, you read the Quran. I'm just asking you, do you just want to listen to someone tell you all the stuff, or do you need to read the stuff yourself so you can actually be able to ask the better questions, right? That's the area of faith. Family. All of us, I have kids. Dr. Fred doesn't have kids right now, but we have to know she has lots of
Nieces and nephews.
exactly,
Godchildren, yes.
right. So, but I'm saying, when it comes to the kids, for example, because I was informed in terms of not choosing the career for my kids, because I learned that as a child, I put them into a lot of stuff. I send them to the best school, don't get me wrong, but I also put them in sports. I put them in soccer, karate, dancing, whatever, right? Just to give them a shot to choose. So my two boys, they love soccer. I think they do soccer every day of the week to practice. My daughter loves dancing, right? So my point is, yes, they're going to school, but guess what? They're doing something else that they love to do. And it's kind of interesting how they do what they love to do compared to what they've been asked to do. But that's kind of, for me, because I was more informed about how to make a choice in my family, I allow my kids to decide for themselves what they want to do, right? And when it comes to finance, when it comes to money, most of us struggle because the system tells you what to do. Go put your money in the bank. Whatever they give you, you take, because they're protecting your money, right? And they're taking risk, but they're not. But you have to know. So I sought out for a financial advisor, and then I ended up with a financial professional that has guided me and totally changed my perspective when it comes to money and wealth. This is why we talk about the wealth equation series, because this is one of the topics that we usually don't talk about growing up. I challenge everyone, if you want to become a pharmacist, what kind of school do you go to? You go to pharmacy school. You want to become a registered nurse, what do you go to? You go to nursing school. You want to become an engineer, you go to engineering school. If you want to become wealthy, what kind of school do you go to? Most people can answer because there's no wealth school. If you go to finance school, you don't become wealthy. Does that make sense? So the point is, in all these areas, and I can go through all of them, you have to have a way, you have to find a way to make the best decisions for yourself, informed decisions, so you can have the lifestyle that you choose. Right? When it comes to the area of health, which is key, fitness, I call it, but it's actually health. We are dealing with a pandemic right now that is serious and is coming back again. We have politicians that have made decisions on our behalf. Some of us follow some of those decisions without even thinking for ourselves. Now, I worked in the medical space for 20 years. If I went into an OR operations room, I was required to wear a mask. If a doctor was operating in that room, they're required to wear a mask to protect you, right? I work in a company where we made medical devices. There's something called a clean room. You're supposed to wear a mask to go into the clean room. So my question is this: some of us are debating whether you should wear a mask or not when it comes to your health. Question: when did wearing a mask become political? Like, seriously. So I don't understand that. I kind of look at it, I'm like, man, we try to be careful not to talk about it, but we actually kind of destroy our own society by ourselves by trying to say that everyone is free to just decide. Yes, we want everyone to decide, but with the right process, with the right information, right? And then when it comes to the area of fun, right? You want to travel somewhere, you probably need a travel guide or a tour guide. If I go to Mexico, I go to some place I've never been before, I probably want someone to help me while I'm there, because I don't know the place. I took my kids to Morocco. Every day we went down to Marrakesh. We look for a tour guide because we don't know the place. So they tell me, oh, this is this, this is this. That's what I want. Makes sense. I'm not going to go buy books and spend all the time trying to study Arabic just so I can interpret this. So I'm only there for like a week, right? So this is, for me, this is what is important. That's what we're talking about, is what process are we using to make decisions in these key areas of our life.
And the reason why we focus on perspective is because if we don't watch it, We will take something that is brilliant and beautiful, whatever it is, a child, uh, a, a team in your workplace, a marriage, a collaboration among organizations, and we will turn on its head and only see what may be considered a grueling underbelly of ugliness and nonsense. That different perspective shifts it, turns it around, and says, oh my goodness, look at all this awesome opportunity. And we get to neutralize what's not complementary. And we get to move and leverage and support and love that child. The same thing with that work team in the environment. We get to honor everyone and support and leverage the strengths of those individuals, minimize their weaknesses by literally highlighting what people do well and amplifying and leveraging the expertise of everyone. The same thing with a marriage. It's easy to look at the ugly stuff, but there was a reason why you got involved in the first place. There was some more than just passion. You made a commitment, right, Dr. Kwende? I've never done that. Look forward to doing it sometime in my lifetime, but I don't even understand what it all is, except I've witnessed it. I've witnessed it among loved ones who've done it well. Even given all the nonsense that happens in the meantime, you work through it. Like my loved ones, my nephew-in-law and I went to visit, who've been married for 58 years. 50, can you imagine that? And they look great. They're beautiful. Claire and Aubrey and Claire. The point that we're making is that perspectives allows us to see things in a way that's additive, or in a way, depending upon our mindset, that actually negates the value that's already in that, whatever it is, that environment, that those set of relationships, etc. So thank you. Gene has shared, he wants to say hello to you, Dr. Martin Kwende. And he
Hi,
also
Jane.
said, that's right. He met you on Cancun and found that you're a man of great mind, and he wants to thank you for that. I think it's Basirat says, keep up the good work, sir. So I want to acknowledge these folks. And India says hello to us. And we know there's many other folks who are viewing, whether it's by way of your television or Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. And we thank you for being here with us. But we want you to understand your power, the power of your perception. How you perceive things is powerful. You can literally change it on a dime. The next question we have is, if you are lacking expertise in any area or in an area, how important is it to you that decisions you make are guided by expert opinion? So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about that. So the example that Dr. Kwende gave of, in certain environment, we take advantage, you take for granted that you wear a mask. It's just part of the protocol in order to safeguard patients in one instance, safeguard the materials you're creating for patients in another regards. But that's not just for those patients, that's also for technology. That's not just for technology, that's for our well-being. So why is the question Dr. Kwende asked, why did we make wearing face mask to protect ourselves from this virus that is mutating, that takes on all kinds of manifestations that we still are learning about as a species of humans? The experts have learned a lot, but they still don't know what they don't know. So while they're figuring things out, why are we risking our lives in context? Because of political nonsense? There's got to be someone who wins and someone who loses. We don't mean to ask this in a rhetorical way. We really want you to consider, don't make the well-being of your children, of yourself, of your folks you love at stake. Don't compromise it because of nonsense. And that's my perspective, that political nonsense is in our way. Our next question, I really want Dr. Kwende to touch on this. What do you consider yourself an expert in? That's for all of us to, what do you consider yourself an expert in? That's a question that we ask you all. And we're going to talk about that. And how does that impact how you interact with others in that area? So we're developing expertise more so in finance. Dr. Kwende is an expert. He's not where he wants to be, but compared to me, he's an expert. I am much better along than I was. And within a few years, and I believe it's going to take me a good 5 to 10 years before I call myself an expert. It took me literally 20 years before I called myself an expert in terms of higher education. So why do I think it's going to take me a month or 6 months or a year? No way. There's so much I don't know. Dr. Kwende, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, that's a great area. They say it takes about 10,000 hours to master anything, right? Or maybe 5 years. So if you work at something consistently for 5 years, then you can consider yourself an expert in that area. But even then, there's always still a lot to learn. The way the world is changing, right? And so I spent about 20 years in the medical device field, and I consider myself an expert in that field, right? Uh, I've spent about probably my 7 year now in the financial space. So I'm getting to the point where I feel like I have some expertise in the area. Nonetheless, there's a lot that I still have to learn personally in the financial space, because that's the mindset that I have, that I'm always learning as an entrepreneur, right? I have a growth mindset. You can never know enough. You're always reading books, always learning, right? So if I hear somebody say something, and this is my point, because I have a good mindset, I'm always listening from everyone to learn whether they're expert or not, because I don't know what I don't know yet. Makes sense. So when somebody's talking to me about anything, I'm listening and trying to understand what are they adding to what I know. What can I learn? Because there's always something to learn. The same thing can be said 5 times. Every time you understand something a little bit different. Because one of our mentors says you don't learn stuff, you catch it, right? Somebody says the same thing 5 times, and 3 times is like, wow, now I get it. Yeah. Even though it's the exact same thing that was said. So when you listen to people, like something start to click. That's why having a very open mindset, even if you think you are the expert, you still have to listen. In fact, most of the time when you're an expert, you almost have a fixed mindset in that expert area. Right? So being able to open yourself to listening to other people just talk about what you think you're expert at. They ask questions that you never asked before because you feel like you already know everything. So being willing to listen even more in your expert area is even more important, I think.
I want to come back to what really part of what drove us to come up with this topic for last month and also this month. And I'm concerned, and you can share your concerns beyond what you've already done. I'm concerned that we are allowing ourselves to just literally be pulled and swayed in all kinds of directions without having, whether it's a moral compass, whether it's being grounded in our own set of understandings, or being clear about where we want to go so that we can literally allow for all the input to help us develop that, map out the path to get there. I'm concerned that there's a lot of noise out there that we're responding to. And the noise is prominent. And whether, and I make it a point to go online to check out the news. I don't turn the news on the television for the most part. I have a television, actually, I have more than one, but I leverage them for entertainment purposes. But when I want to check out something, I go online, I go to the Associated Press, because that usually is where the source of a lot of the streamlined news is. And then I go to alternative areas, and a lot of it is negative, folks. Doesn't matter what it is. It's not constructive, meaning that it's not about, we're here, here's what we're doing to ensure we get to a healthier place. And so the question is, what's the value of taking in all that stuff when it keeps us stuck? Whether it's about COVID-19, whether it's about the trials and tribulations of the heinous things that are happening to people around the planet, including in Afghanistan, whether it's about our own government, whether it's about what's happening in our community, someone stole something, whether it's about wondering about local politicians and whether they care about the actual community, whether it's about, I, I can go on and on and on. And of course, in our households. And the degree to which we have all that stuff coming at us and we have no filters and we don't turn them down, they affect our individual lives. They affect our energy that we have to even contribute to our children, to our partners, to the extended family. So we just want you to recognize that you've got more power than you may be exercising. Whether you're a CEO of a corporation, you're a director of programs, you're leading a community-based effort, you are responsible for a regional collaboration of different businesses, you are at the national level in interacting with governments, whatever your role is, you get to shift the conversation. You get to shift things in a way that makes it much more honorable, healthier, adding more value to life itself. I needed to emphasize that because too much of what we're taking in, it's consuming us, is harmful. What are your thoughts, Dr. Kwende?
No, I totally agree, and I think just for the fact that we care about the society, about the community, we have to express genuinely what we feel and how we feel about things in a way that we believe can be helpful. One thing that usually concerns me is just being very open and vulnerable right now. Is when I consider like 5 expert areas. So in my growing up, they told me you could do science, engineering, medicine, politics, or money. That's kind of how I was told. And I kind of break them into two. So let's take science, engineering, and medicine as one category, then politics and money. Okay. Now, of those two categories, who is more likely to tell you the truth the way it is? Is it the scientists, the engineers, or the medical people, or the politicians and the money people? How is it possible that we are tending to believe more of the people that we know that normally don't tell us the truth? How does that make sense? Seriously, as a scientist, I'm almost compelled to tell you the truth. That, don't get me wrong, people can still twist science. Okay, so that's not my point. I'm saying who's more likely to tell you the truth? It's the scientist, the engineer, and the medical professional. That's kind of the truth. So we get into a space where we're starting to believe people that we know normally don't have to tell us the truth. That's why our society starts to get the way it is. And until we become real and genuine and stand like, hey, let's pull back individually, each one of us, and actually process how we decide the things that we decide. Right? Collectively, we're going to injure each other if we don't do that correctly.
And then there's something else. I have conversations that in the back of my head that we've had, and it's around the power of each one of us really ensuring that we have a solid financial foundation, just like a solid faith, a solid family, a solid health, solid, experiences with fun and joy, etc. Being happy, that's not just a fleeting thing. It should be ubiquitous, right?
Yeah.
Having a financial foundation all of a sudden that allows us to be free of the concerns about debt and who's demanding that we pay them yesterday or whatever, and working hard for money rather than having the money to work for hard for you. Having that solid financial foundation, more of us get to be part of that community who's providing the honest, factual information. So whether we're doctors, whether we are scientists, whether we are engineers, or whether we're educators, whatever the roles we are, whether we are maintenance leaders of maintenance workers, whether we are doing whatever we're doing in the community that adds value, youth development leaders, whatever our role is, if we have a solid foundation, all of a sudden we get to influence everything else, right? Who's influencing the planet? those with wealth. And why can we find wealth among all diverse communities across the planet? Well, I make the statement that we can. We can grow it. We can develop it. And that's what we want you to know. Just because you're where you're at, just because your history has been X, does not mean that you can't move to another paradigm. We want influencers around this planet to heal literally the nature of humanity. And how do we do it? We're choosing the financial services industry. Why? Because we want to get people to a healthier place right away. When you have money, it is not the end, but it's a means to ensure your health is better. It's a means to ensure you don't have concerns that disrupts the family life. It's a means to ensure that you're able to actualize your dream. I have a dear loved one. She's a medical doctor. You know what her fantasy is, Dr. Kwende, in terms of her retirement?
No.
I asked her recently. She said, I never thought about that question. She calls me Tina, Dr. Michelle. And she said, my fantasy, my goal is to build a home, a building, a structure where the disabled can live and flourish into retirement. Isn't that beautiful? And guess what? She needs to do that. She needs at the base the finances to do that.
Yes. When you say that, Dr. Webb, there are three things that, well, let me start by saying this way. The 5 F's: faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. Every time I ask anyone about those 5 things, and I always ask, give me your top 3, guess what? Most of the time, the top 3 would include the finance. Like almost all of the time, if they're actually discerning, that's what they're going to say. Because the finance is the one thing that if you fix, most of the other things are going to fix easily, right? If you have finance, then you can take care of your family, you have some influence, you can take care of your faith, you can help poor people, you can take care of your health, your fitness, right? You can buy the right foods, you can go on the diet, well, you don't on the right diet, or you can travel, have fun, right? Because at the end of the day, nobody eats money, but that's the medium that we use to get other things to happen. But the thing that I really wanted to point out is that at the end of the day, there's something called the 3 P's. Okay.
Yes.
Which is, the first one is called purpose. The truth is that every one of us in this world, God made us for a purpose, with a purpose. We have a purpose for being here. Sadly, most people die with their purpose inside of them. They say that the graveyard is the wealthiest place on earth. Why? Because a lot of people die with all the books they were supposed to write, all the inventions they were supposed to bring out, right? Because they never did that. They never actually understood what their purpose was in life, right?
Or they understood it, but they were fearful. They weren't validated. They were externally driven, and that external feedback or lack thereof kept them stuck, or they kept themselves stuck and thought it was the external environment.
But that's why owning your perspective is key, because if you own your perspective, you're going to discern what it is that you're supposed to do. But once you figure that out, and the truth is that figuring out the purpose is not that easy, because for me, for example, I have always shared that, I have significant expertise in the medical field, because that's what I studied. And I worked in that field for 20 years. So when I prayed for my purpose, I always felt that my purpose was supposed to be what? To come in the medical space or in engineering, because that's what I already studied and I was an expert in, at least in my mind. But it ends up that my purpose ends up more in the financial space of influence, which is what I do right now. But for my background, I would not have thought that it could be this one, right? But once you have your purpose, if you figure out what your purpose is, then you have to develop the second piece called passion. You have to have passion for your purpose, right? You have to have passion for your purpose. That's the only way that it works. You have to create a passion for your purpose. So you have to have purpose, then you have a passion for your purpose. That's what makes it happen. However, those 2 pieces cannot make it happen.
Yeah, we call it burning desire.
Yeah. Just having a burning desire doesn't make stuff happen. Something else has to happen. Okay? So let's say my burning desire is to go to Bangladesh and spread the gospel, whatever it is. Guess what is going to stop me? Profit, we call it. That's money. That's finance, right? If like the doctor that you just said, Dr. Webb, that wants to go build a home for disabled people, guess what?
Dr. Michelle.
Yeah, the money still. So at the end of the day, profit is going to stop you from doing a lot of stuff. Interestingly, the line of business that we're in right now has profit, but there's also a purpose and a passion attached in the same thing.
Absolutely.
Most things are not like that. Okay, most things that you have your purpose in and you're passionate about don't necessarily make you money. So I want you to think about it and say, what if one way to show you how to make the profit so you can go live your purpose and your passion wherever that is? That's the reason why we talk about, what we do a lot more. And some people are like, well, why are you talking about making money? Because if you don't have money, you have no you have no influence. That's what money does. It creates influence.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Influence. Emphasis added. Influence, influence, influence. If there's no other takeaway, folks, from your hearing this, is the power of influence. And not just in your, among your loved ones, not just in the local community, but we're talking about real influence that allows for your children, your family, your community to experience the powerful aspects of life in a way that leads to their greater understanding and well-being. We're talking about nationwide influence. We're talking about international influence. We're talking about literally energetically helping to shift the consciousness of humanity. That's what we're talking about. And we're not negating any aspects of ourselves. And the more of us who recognize that we are powerful beyond measure, and scientists are finding about the human not only consciousness, but the nature of this physical being in relationship to consciousness is blowing them away. And folks, if you haven't read some of these landmark books or remarkable scientific research papers, you need to slow down and pay attention, or maybe not. Just recognize that you're more powerful than we thought even just 10 years ago. You get to influence in a way that the means to do that on the planet currently, the more wealth you have financially allows you to take care of your family, to take care of yourself, but also to share that wealth with others in fundamental ways. And to influence policies is what we're talking about. To influence practices is what we're talking about. I want to just remind us of the obvious. I think we said it earlier. If we don't watch it, we'll be programmed from the outside as opposed to programmed from the inside. Right, Dr. Kwende? We're talking about reprogramming ourselves in the way that works for us. We've got to know where we want to go. Dr. Kwende just restated the obvious. He put it in the perfect P's: purpose, burning desire, passion, and then, of course, having the resources, the profits to make it happen. And you don't have to have it all at the beginning. You just have to know that you need to have it and then be open to the possibilities and use some of the fundamentals that we talked about earlier. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm kind of curious why, as a society, some of these basics we don't teach our kids in school. I mean, I just dropped my kids at school today, and I was kind of telling some of the other parents, I'm like, sometimes it bothers me in the sense of, I grew up being told, oh, you have to go to the best school. So I was fortunate to do that. However, nobody told me how to become free financially, how to own a business. No one told me that was even possible, right? And I cite this example for those of you that watch soccer. You saw Lionel Messi just move from Barcelona, Spain to Paris, Saint-Germain, I believe, right? And that guy, this is how I say it, he kicks around a sack of air. Some of you call it a soccer ball. It's a sack of air. That's what he kicks around every day. He can make more money in 1 week 1 week than the university professor teaching the next set of doctors makes in 20 years.
Correct.
Like for real.
Mm-hmm.
Lionel Messi kicking around in sack of air makes more money than a university professor can make in an entire 20-year career. And the question is, how is that even possible? How does a society allow that to happen? When I understood the reasoning, it totally changed how I looked at my kids and my family and what I try to do for my kids and how I look at the system that we're part of. And the rationale is very simple. If a university professor teaches 100 students, medical students, a year, and he did that for 20 years consistently, so 20 times 100 is 2,000 students.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That means 2,000 individuals are willing to pay the professor for what he does. That's how the system works. However, if Lionel Messi plays soccer in Barcelona, now he went to Paris Saint-Germain, guess what? Millions of people are watching it, some in the stadium and some on TV, and they're all willing to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he gets paid. It's not about how important what it is, what he does is. It's about who is willing to pay him. How come they don't tell us that when we're young? They just say, "Oh, Doctor, well, go get some more degrees, get some more degrees, get some more degrees," and no one tells you how the real world really works.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
my hope is that we can raise people's consciousness about how the system really works. Because once you understand it, just a few tweaks can change everything.
I'm not going to go through the details. If you want to know the details, you talk to Dr. Kwende and I. Literally, for those of you who have children, I'm thinking about one of my great nephews. I am thinking about actually one of my great godsons. Actually, I'm thinking about that's too many. I'm adding the 5 nephews and godsons. Not even 5 years old. Their parents set aside X amount of very minor amount of money, and ultimately in 14 years set aside 28,000 for each one of those children. By the time those children, and the right instrument, by the time those children are 60 years old, they'll have well in excess of $1 million. In the right instrument, right, Dr. Kwende?
No,
That
without question, yes.
28,000, by the time they're 19, they put no more money in there and just watch that money grow. And it's not a matter of riding the stock market. No, 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 no. No. Literally, folks, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about shifting the way people think about money, not working hard for money. Yes, we work hard. Hopefully, we have a vision while we're working. We are passionate about what we do, and we do it because we want to add value. But many of us are working because we just need money. Let's be clear. And so the question is, how do you leverage that money and have it work for you? So that as you grow and develop, as you take care of loved ones, whether they're your direct family or extended family, they don't have to deal with the suffering that comes from the lack of money, the suffering that comes from the lack of having the funds to take care of an ailing parent or loved one, or a person who got COVID. You have the medical resources to ensure that they're well, or ensuring that people are physically well so that they can fight any kind of virus or disease that may try to take over their body. The reason why too many of us are dying with COVID is because our systems are already compromised. We're living in food deserts, we're not eating right. We're not moving, we're not walking, we're not stretching. We don't have to work out really hard. We have to take in some fresh oxygen that comes from the trees. We're not even around trees, some of us. We're in concrete jungles. Shifts, shifts, shifts. All of a sudden, we move from one paradigm to another. The consciousness of one, fix, the consciousness of another, growth, transformation can happen like that with the right emotional commitments, or it can take time. It's up to us. And so, my great godson, Zachariah, is watching with us and paying close attention. I love it. And then Olive writes, our dear Olive, too, true, no one tells us how the real world works. And what does Ernestine share with us? Thank you. This is wonderful. I enjoy your teaching. You give us so much of yourself to our companies, community, and teams. Thank you, Dr. Kwende. Awesome. And then Gene goes straight, he hits the nail on the head. We were just talking about Index Universal Life, folks, IULs. Contact us for more details. And Tomoko, thank you for being here with us. And thanks to you, Dr. Kwende, and we're just appreciative of folks. What else would you like to add to this, Dr. Kwende, beyond just the obvious, maybe?
Well, I personally, obviously want to thank you, Dr. Webb, for creating this platform. I have always told myself that I wanted to write a book because I wanted to share the information that I think I have in terms of the gift that I was given to share. Um, but right now, I don't feel the need to do that anymore because of this platform. Right? I never wanted to write a book to make money. I just wanted to share my thoughts and what I think I could leave as an impact to society. So having the opportunity to be on this platform, that's a huge privilege for me. And I just want to really truly thank you for making this possible. And for everyone listening, listen, we all are gifts. God sent us as a gift for someone, right? And my hope is that you bring your gift to the table. Every day I tell the people that I work with, I say my goal every day is to get as many thank yous as possible. Just thank you. Why? I cannot get a thank you for not doing something good. So it forces me to do good by just wanting a thank you. That's all I want. Just tell me thank you. That's it. We can't thank me for nothing. So I have to do something to get a thank you. That's my mindset every day. I wake up, I'm like, hey, how many thank yous can I get today?
And we want to also, I want to add to what you just said, Dr. Kwende, and that is when we are of value and it's unconditional. And what I mean by unconditional, we're not demanding that anyone do anything. We are influencing, and we hope that people leverage what we share, what we give freely, in a way that adds value to their life. That's what I mean by unconditional. And so, but when we do it and it's really of value to people, we get all kinds of gifts back. And they're the thank yous. I know you've got numerous thank yous. I've heard thank yous to you, Dr. Kwende, where you weren't even on the call at the time. People were thanking you, gratitude. And so be in service in your own way, whether it's within someone else's organization, your own organization, but definitely lead in the way you want to. And when people say, don't let the outside world control you, I say, recognize you get to create the paradigm that you experience. And while there's all this chaos around you, you can literally be in the center experiencing perfect peace. I know it seems kind of odd for some folks, but it's really profound. You can be in the center of a lot of stuff. In fact, many people across this planet are at peace. We can learn from them wherever they're at. And Dr. Kwende, it's an honor to be in partnership with you. And I'm looking over here because I want to make certain I don't miss posts that are shared by people. You're a remarkable professional and an extraordinary example of a husband, of a father, of a colleague, of a leader, of someone who understands the power and importance of mentorship, because you've experienced what we're experiencing, this remarkable leadership, and you've experienced it for a longer period of time with Mr. Eric Olson. You're also leading by example as a mentor, and you understand the power of a coach, which may not be the same as a mentor. You understand the power of just giving people what they need. So, folks, when you think about the Wealth Equation series, think about how you can do more internal work to edify your own faith, whether it's religious because you are a believer of the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, you're Taoist, you're Buddhist, whatever you happen to be, among the many hundreds of religions across this planet. At the core, we're spirits in human form. Edify that spirit. Whatever you choose to do in terms of your family, your health, and fun, understand that there are experts like Dr. Kwende and many more, number of us professionals who are about the business of ensuring that you experience financial freedom and you build wealth that literally is transferred for multiple generations. Thank you, Dr. Kwende. It's always an honor.
Same here. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All righty, folks. We'll see you next week, Wednesday, noon Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Dr. Kwende will be back here next month, right? And we'll have more to share. It's an honor.
Thank you, Dr. Well. Have a great afternoon.
Oh, you too. And thank you, everyone. And I just want to acknowledge as Jet takes us out, and Jet is our remarkable lead behind the scenes. He's in the Philippines and a wonderful young man who's leading in his own way. And thank you for moving us out as we share this with the world. Thank you, Jean, who writes, wow, 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 this is very inspirational and eloquently put together. You guys are it. Thank you, Jean. And we appreciate you too. Be well. Wado.